SpongeBob SquarePants is a series full of inconsistencies and contradictions in its continuity. The clearest example at the moment is the new spin-off series called The Patrick Star Show, centered on Patrick and his family. In the images of the show, we see that the appearance of his family is very far from the original design of the SpongeBob series, and it is worrying because the main team behind SpongeBob is supposed to be fully involved in this series. But despite this level of contradictions that even Star Wars doesn't have, there is one theme that has always been maintained in SpongeBob, and it has been respected even in more recent seasons. This is the case of Mrs. Puff, the driving school teacher who has failed SpongeBob so many times. Throughout the show, we see many references to her having a very strange past, and if we pay attention, everything seems to indicate that Mrs. Puff is not who she says she is, that her whole profile, her history and her image as a good citizen are false. So today, we will explore this mysterious mystery. Let's start then with the origin of Mrs. Puff. What do we know for sure about her? The first thing we see in the episode Krusty Love, on her first date with Mr. Krabs, we learn that at some point there was a Mr. Puff, but he was captured by some fishermen and is now just a desk lamp. In the episode Doing Time from the 3rd season, there is also a flashback when Mrs. Puff had just opened her Bikini Bottom driving school, saying that she is not going to give up on any student who has the willingness to learn. It is right at this moment where she meets SpongeBob and her story of suffering begins. From the first season, in the episode Hall Monitor, Mrs. Puff ended up in jail because of the chaos caused by SpongeBob, to whom she gave a position as a monitor. She was locked up for about 6 months, teaching from a distance. After that, the teacher returned to face-to-face classes where again and again and again, SpongeBob continued to fail his driving tests, with catastrophic results. That is until the teacher reached her breaking point during the 2nd season, and in the episode No Free Rides, she decides to get rid of her student by any means possible, so she invents the excuse of extra credits to give him his driver's license. But this is where the irregularities begin, as once we get into the episode, Mrs. Puff has what appears to be a psychotic breakdown, and regretting having given Bob his license, she sets to work to make sure he can't drive his boat. In the midst of her paranoia, she talks about the possibility of escaping, of starting over in another city with another driving school and another name. Then, she says the following sentence verbatim. "No, not again." This simple sentence is in itself very revealing, and in fact, throughout the seasons, crumbs of information are given about what happened to Mrs. Puff, so that she had to escape and start over in another city with another driving school and another name. More recently, in the 12th season episode entitled Lighthouse Louie, we are shown more about Mrs. Puff's past, but not because her story is part of the episode's narrative, but because it is hidden in plain sight as an Easter egg. This chapter begins with Bob failing yet another driving test, and this time he ends up crashing a boat into the lighthouse next to the school building. The lighthouse serves mainly as a sort of vault for Mrs. Puff, and as punishment and a way to make up for the destruction, Mrs. Puff leaves Bob at the lighthouse, fixing the mess he made. So Bob gets to work and starts with cleaning up the place, and during a few frames, while Bob absorbs several of the objects lying around, we can see an old newspaper. A newspaper that does not belong to Bikini Bottom, but to a nearby town called New Cap City. And the headline says, "Deranged boat teacher makes getaway," with a picture of a younger Mrs. Puff on the side. This confirms to us that Mrs. Puff is not from Bikini Bottom. That's not her first boat school, and apparently she's not the real Mrs. Puff either, or at least, that's not her name. We now know that she comes from New Kelp City. If we recall the episode from the extra credits going back to Mrs. Puff's psychotic break, during her hallucination we can see SpongeBob destroying what appears to be a city, while a fish does a report on the chaos. The reporter in this segment is similar to the current Bikini Bottom reporter, but here he has hair, so he appears to be younger. That suggests to us that this crisis in Mrs. Puff's mind is actually a mix between her current situation with SpongeBob and a flashback to the disasters that happened in New Kelp City. So Bob was probably not her first difficult student, and after causing great damage to New Kelp City, Mrs. Puff had to escape and start a new life in Bikini Bottom. If we go to her flashback, Mrs. Puff emphasizes wanting to help all her students, as long as they maintain their desire to learn. I suspect that, deep down, she regrets her past mistakes and is looking to redeem herself or something, and that's why she opened her driving school. But that doesn't excuse her from her other crimes like document forgery or identity theft. In the Lighthouse Louie episode, a folder with a little tab that says Mrs. Puff also briefly appears. That's weird. I mean, we all keep documents on ourselves, but it's weird to have hidden in a vault a file that literally has your own name on it. If they're your own documents, I would say like important documents or mortgage papers or something like that, it wouldn't have your name on it directly. This ties in quite a bit to the fact that possibly she took someone else's name to build her new identity in Bikini Bottom and that she used fake documentation. Yes, in the extra credits episode, she already had Bob's driver's license ready and didn't require any paperwork or take the time to put a stamp on it or anything. It seems she already has everything done in case she needs to disappear again. And you would think that Mrs. Puff's crimes have gone far enough, but there's more. Everything I just said only has to do with the title of the article we see in the paper, but further down it also says this: distracts authorities with balloon animals. That's a reference to something we see in No Free Rides. When she is about to steal Bob's new boat, she says, "I hope I still remember how to do this." Yeah, and as she says this, she forms an animal out of a purple balloon. In fact, later in this episode, Bob yells at the masked teacher that he already knows who she is, and she gets too nervous, and yells back replying that there's no way he can know who she is. Now we understand that it's not that she was nervous that he knew she was Mrs. Puff, but that Bob would have recognized her as the unhinged Kelp City boat teacher. Back on topic with the balloons, what does this mean for Mrs. Puff's past? Well, several years ago, Steven Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob, released several comics drawn and written by him. Today they are very hard to come by, but in one of these comics it seems that Mrs. Puff admits in a conversation that she used to rob banks. It seems that, using her harmless appearance, her elegant way of speaking and misleading the innocent minds of New Kelp City, she used to use her balloon animals as a way to go unnoticed by the public and the authorities, while performing larger scale crimes, having a double life as a teacher at a boat school and as a bank robbery mastermind who for a long time got away with it. And although she hasn't been practicing her profession as a bank robber, she has been stealing things left and right. If we pay attention to everything she kept in the lighthouse of her driving school, we notice that she has collected multiple items over the years, and the vast majority of them are not hers. We see a table of the Krusty Krab, a painting of Squidward, the hidden treasure chest, the #1 hat, and other objects she must have stolen, such as SpongeBob's personal diary, which was in the library of his pineapple. All these objects are private, and it is obvious that she stole them, so it seems that she is actually a kleptomaniac. That is, she steals compulsively. One of her most obvious thefts is Snelly, the snail that appears in the episode The Great Snail Race, which is acquired by Squidward. At the end of that episode, Snelly and Gary end up in love, and we always assumed that Squidward had returned her to the store since we never saw her with him. But a few chapters later we see Snelly again, although this time under the power of Mrs. Puff. She was calling for help because her snail got stuck in a tree and says she's had it since she was little, even though we see that it's clearly Snelly. Usually kleptomania also goes hand in hand with mythomania, which leads you to tell one lie after another compulsively, sometimes for no reason at all, and sometimes to avoid suffering some punishment or something. It is evident that Mrs. Puff's past has led her to lie in front of all of Bikini Bottom, or even to have to lie to herself to convince herself of the role she is taking day by day, so it is quite possible that we can add mythomania to her list of problems. So if we take into account everything we have just seen in this video, in a way Mrs. Puff is paying for all her crimes with SpongeBob, who makes her life a constant hell, but it is the sentence she must pay, the karma for all her past actions and from which she cannot escape. In fact, this is not a metaphor, it is more literal than it seems. There are chapters where it is mentioned that she is forced to teach SpongeBob, and although this was not the case when the series began, there is another theory that assures us that there is someone pulling the strings behind the teacher's misfortunes, someone willing to make her suffer in order to get revenge and who has decided to tie her for life to SpongeBob, but that theory is so extensive that we will have to leave it for another time. So for now, I hope you liked this video. Like it if you did. Thanks a lot to BloodMetal117 for his titanic help with this script, and subscribe for more videos like this one. And see you in the next video. Bye.